Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I am here with fourth year political science student Paul Phanachet.
I'd like to say politics is my first love and film is the fling that I really love. Immigration is such an interesting topic to me. I actually did not care so much about immigration until recently. I say I'm Thai and like all the Chinese people on Spadina speaks Mandarin to me. I've been very well assimilated into the Thai community. I don't speak Mandarin. When I came to Canada, my host family, they would say, "Oh, could you pass me the salt instead of give me the salt?" Phrase it as a question. I think that's a Canadian thing, like to say sorry when, you're walking past someone. These little Canadian gestures, that's my image of Canada. That's how I feel Canadians interact with each other. Now, when I got to Toronto, it's
a little bit different.
It's a bit different. Yeah. It's a bit jarring. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm in Canada at all. I like to joke, "Oh, I'm back in Asia again." Yeah. Canadians, for example, one of the key things that I love about the Canadian culture is your ability to small talk.
Right.
How can I small talk with people who don't even know English? What's going on?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Today I am here with fourth year political science student Paul. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Phanachet. So
Phanachet with the H even.
Yeah, with the H, because we have many sounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is one of them.
You're from Thailand.
I'm from Thailand, yes. I'm from Bangkok. I was born and raised there for, I think, until I was 15. And then I moved to study in Canada. So I went to Victoria, BC. And I guess, my curiosity for Canada isn't over. So after high school, I came back to Canada. And I thought, where's a better place to be than the big old city, Toronto?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do I regret it? Maybe. We'll see.
Let's dive into it.
Let's see what I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So when exactly, you said you were in BC? For what again?
So I was in high school. I went to high school in BC.
What made you go to BC for high school?
Exactly. So my sister, actually, younger sister, went to BC before me. She went to Victoria.
Yeah.
Because she felt like school back in Thailand wasn't providing her with the right level of challenge for her. Like she's ahead of class and everything. So she went to BC and she actually went up a grade and.
Oh, wow.
So she's in the same grade as me and graduated at the same time as me.
Nice.
I have a similar challenge, but it's less about mathematics and it's more about the social sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that the school I was at was not providing that space for me to explore my curiosities in the social sciences.
Yeah.
And when I went to Victoria to visit my sister during my spring break, I felt that Canadian teachers, at least the ones that I met, they're much more open to debate, to talk, and to give me the right, way to understand the world.
Yeah.
A way that is, formed through curiosities and not just this is what it is and this is how we should, talk about it.
Yeah.
And so this might be a theme in my life, but it's something like that really attracts me to come to Canada at first. But also I was wondering what the high school experience of being in North America is like.
Yeah.
I've seen it in the movies, but I've never really lived in it. So
Hannah Montana.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something like that. Yeah. I was thinking more like like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh yeah.
But so I came, but it's Canada. I know there's differences, and I think it's a very good experience. I came to Canada. I was in Victoria, and I had to learn so many new things to adapt to the Canadian culture. And I'm still very I'm still talking. I send letters to my social science teacher.
Yep.
Because he was the one who taught me about the Canadian values and all sorts of stuff. And he was a firm but fair guy.
Yep.
And even though many students in my high school did not really, maybe was not so fond of him at times, but I thought this is perfect. This is a way to teach me what Canadian values are like, and for me to integrate with this society a bit better through like very tough but fair stance. And I think that's something I could not have gotten like back home in like at least Thailand or stuff like that I would appreciate so much. And so I think when you are able to integrate into the culture through good education of it, it really helps me feel better to be in Canada, and that's my first initial experience. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think the whole point of university and education in the first place, especially in countries like Canada, the U.S. ideally, is that it teaches its students to think. Not what to think, but how to think critically about issues. And like you said, in Thailand, it might be a problem where they're saying this is how things are, not necessarily, laying out the process of when you encounter a certain challenge, approach it in this way. It's saying, no, if this is the challenge, this is your response. And in Canada, the idea, once again, when you compare Canada to other countries in the world, we have it very good. It's fantastic here. We're very free on a global standard. But within our own borders, I feel like people have noticed a shift from very free expression and openness, and people are willing to talk about issues and confront each other on specific, let's say, hot political topics. You're a political science student, so political topics especially. Now it's like it's way more divided, way more controversial than it is, especially in the university environment, and especially if you're in the university environment with a dissenting viewpoint. If you have a view that goes against the establishment or the mainstream consensus of, I would say it's more liberal leaning, then it's trouble for you. You can't really express yourself.
Well, I think that's the one feeling people have, and I'm sure it's valid. It's a valid feeling. For me, it's also that when you're marketing yourself or when you're showing yourself as liberal, we are a liberal democracy. See, right. I might say, the environment of studying politics in Thailand is not the most wholesome experience because we have our own censorship laws. But I don't think we're ever saying that Thailand is the shining beacon of democracy.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, I understand that we have limitations in this country.
Yeah.
So I am gonna, find the best way to learn under this circumstance.
Right.
And if I have the opportunity to learn under other circumstances, I would love to see where it goes. It's more like an adventure for me. It's not a necessity.
Yeah.
It's not a necessity for me to be in a free, free and fair, liberty, speaking, country, because I think I can still learn politics through the silence in between the lines that they don't want me to say.
100%.
And that's something I learned from being in a place where you can go to jail for saying a certain thing. Now, but I think what annoys me, and I'm not sure if it's an annoyance and it's growing into a resentment or something, right, is that when you advertise yourself as a place for free speech, and that's exactly what I had with the old school that I was at in Bangkok before I moved to Canada, was that they say, we can talk about anything, we love freedom of speech, you should be able to express yourself. Yeah. But then they have a certain agenda to what you can express, and I'm like, look, just come straight right out and say, this is the only thing you can talk about. Yeah. And be straightforward with us. And I'll be like, fine, fair enough. You wrote it in your laws and your code of conduct or whatever. Yeah. And you don't have to be so phony about it. And that's the annoyance that I have. And I'm sure you have experiences like that around here. And that kind of stuff. I think it's time to pull the mask off of these institutional hypocrisy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like I'm realizing now that there's no country in the world without censorship. It's just different versions of censorship. In Thailand, I'll ask you very shortly, but in Thailand, I'm sure that they censor certain specific topics. In Russia, you can't criticize Putin. In North Korea, you can't criticize Kim Jong-un. In Russia, you can't speak badly about the motherland, about the country itself. I don't want to speak bad about my country. So if I was in Russia and let's say I liked Putin or I love my country, then I'd be fine. I don't want to talk bad about those things anyways. In different countries, it's different things. In Canada, you can't speak bad about LGBT or you get your head chopped off, basically, and not necessarily written into law. Well, actually, yes, in a way, Bill C-16 written into law, not respecting the pronouns of a person. This is the thing you say in Thailand, they can put you in jail for that kind of thing. In Canada, it's already happened. I don't know about jail, but definitely fines for business owners who don't respect, let's say, customers' pronouns.
In Thailand, it's a bit more about the government institution, so you cannot talk bad about the monarchy in any way.
Yeah.
It's not so much about the identity politics. Now, I understand. I have to say, I cannot be ignorant and say, oh yeah, that's all terrible, because I understand where it came from. But the execution of that law has to be, thought about a bit better.
Yeah.
And I cannot. I will make this straight. I cannot speak to Canadian politics because it is not my politics. I only came here to see what your society is like and see if I can apply some of the great aspects of your society into my own political, community, into Thailand, and see like what I can learn from, Canada. I'll be honest, has done very well in the past century. Someone said it could be the Canada's century, back in the 20th century and stuff like that. So you have done really well, and I want to come here and learn.
Yeah.
Now the problem is, if I want to come here and learn, I also want to be able to ask questions that are hard and hard to grasp. And I totally understand the concept of, look, we are a community of similar thoughts. We are a community that wants to have the same values. That's a very important part in having a country and having a, even having a family, right?
100%.
The smallest unit of the community, the family. You should have similar values, but you have to understand that the country, of course, is going to be more diverse.
Yeah.
It's going to have more voices. And so I think the best way to convince people is to make the right and a convincing argument for the people instead of shutting people down.
100%.
I think that the propaganda of any information should be done through convincing or even like subliminal convincing, so that it's it's your choice to believe in it, not like, oh, clamp down, you can't say this, you can't say that, because
Exactly.
as a young boy myself, anytime someone says you can't do that, what do you think I do?
100%.
I do exactly the thing they told me not to do.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know if it's a human nature thing.
Yeah.
But it definitely is something that the rule that they're trying to put on, the intended policies they're trying to do right now is clearly having a backfire effect. And that's only on, like, say, identity politics side. Like, we haven't even talked about the economy and like what society's gonna be like.
Absolutely.
And that's even more complex, right? So
yeah. And this idea of misinformation, the approach of taking misinformation down by censoring it is completely backwards. Why are you so afraid that people are talking about COVID and the vaccine? The only way to beat misinformation is better information. If you honestly think that you have the right answer, if you think that your opinion or your policy is the absolute best for the Canadian people, I don't understand why you'd want to try so desperately to censor anyone who speaks against it. Because if you just speak your side and explain the logic and the rationale for why you're putting the policies into place that you're putting, then people will naturally gravitate towards that. The only reason you're afraid is because you know that if they completely hear out both sides, then they're not necessarily going to be too convinced with what you're saying. This is the problem. So misinformation, I don't like as a term, because there's no one in the world who can be a good enough arbiter of truth other than obviously God. And unfortunately, we can't really talk to him as clearly as we can talk to each other. So what do you think about misinformation? Is this something that you consider that much?
You have to ask me on what lens am I looking at misinformation? Because if you ask me as a statesman, as someone who rules the country or who's running a country, misinformation is it's very terrifying for them. It's very terrifying for people who are in power, because not because it's like information that can lead to simply anti-government thought, but it can be a national security threat. It can be even like it can it can tear down like governments. It can start a revolution. I think there are many instances. I don't study that much on revolutions, but I'm sure there are times when misinformation is used to start an overthrowing of a government. That's
Probably.
terrible.
Yep.
But on like the individual side, I'm like, well, how do you know it's misinformation? How do you judge that? Like you said, I'm a Buddhist, so I don't believe in God. So I believe in I hope that my moral conscience is good enough to identify whether this information is good or bad.
Yep.
Simply, I think I like what was it Twitter? Some of the social media platforms, they have like, oh, this is what people think it is misrepresenting.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yep. Because
community notes.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Because here's the thing: what's the best way to beat misinformation is to better educate people on the types and threats that comes with information from the internet or information from anywhere, really.
100%.
I want to advertise a bit, but like I took a course at Sciences Po during my exchange last year on intelligence, and I think that is one of the best courses I've ever taken.
Okay.
In my entirety of my 4 years right now in university, because it teaches you how to identify and think for yourself in the age of information. We're no longer in the atomic age. We're in the age of information, and with the age of information, information can be used in very nefarious ways, in very damaging ways, and this has been done forever, but today more easily than ever.
Yep.
So when you ask me, how do we deal with misinformation? How do we deal with the censorship of information? It becomes a very complex and very localized situation as well. And if I were to comment on Canada, I think, look, your education system is good. Just make them educate on, intelligence and information a bit better right here. Yeah.
What do you think is the goal of university as an institution? You get in, 17 years old, 18 years old, straight out of high school. High school is a stage for puberty and dicking around. University is the first time it's ever segregated necessarily by grades, right? So the better schools have the students who got the better grades in high school. So you kind of weed out the people who maybe didn't take their education or their academics as seriously, right? And I shouldn't say education because I believe in self-education completely, but their traditional academics, they didn't succeed in as well as the guys who got better grades. So now you're at school where you're around a lot of people who are as competent as you in school, and all good. And sorry, what was I saying? You're around people who are as competent as you in school. Right. 17, 18 years old. You have 4 years. Most people take 4 years. What is university supposed to turn this person into over the course of these 4 years?
Great. If I ever had the chance to write a PhD on anything, it would be on political education and how do you educate people on politics. And the question you're asking is really interesting for me because if I use history as a benchmark on why universities exist and why a certain education system exists compared to the other one, my history of being from Thailand, it was so that it was kind of modeled after the Prussian Empire. So if you know anything about that, the Prussians, the Germans, especially the Prussians they're different Germanic people, but like the Prussians are very militaristic. Okay. They created the kindergarten system, I believe, so that they can indoctrinate the kids earlier on. So what is education? It's indoctrination. Okay. Now we enter today, the education system probably was, at least in Thailand from my own history, is made so that it can tune up soldiers, essentially, soldiers of the state, one could say, soldiers of the community, where they know the same set of rules, the same set of ideas, and they go out and then they have to figure it out how to use those and stuff like that, which is great, but don't you know that times have passed? We're in the age of information. We're in the age where I learned all this, historical and political information. Like I said, I had a terrible time in middle school. They won't teach me. Where do I learn it? YouTube.
Yeah.
Where do I learn it? I read books and articles online.
Yep.
They're so easily accessible. So with that in mind, we have to, I think everyone's saying it, we have to rethink education. But I still really like schools and institutions because it's not only a place for you to learn math and sciences. It's a place for you to socialize, to make friends.
Yep, absolutely.
Meeting you and meeting my friends, it's a very important place for that. But how do we make going to school fun? I've had moments, and it's a magical moment where I'm like, I really want to go to school because this class is so damn good.
Yeah.
And I wish every class is like that. And why is it so damn good? It's because it allows me to explore what I want to explore, and the professors are the best, at their work, and they can answer all those questions. That's very ideal.
Yeah.
What do you think? And if you're asking me whether these professors or whether a good class requires you to believe in the same way as a professor, no. I took a class last year in France, taught by a military guy from France, and we were debating whether Thailand or France won the Franco-Thai War of 1941. What the hell is that?
Yeah. That's
it's
cool.
like, if I'm able to do that, there, and I'm very happy to be in this class, and I come to class every day, even when there was a party and I got invited for free. I was like, no, I have to go to this class. I'm sorry, this doesn't happen. I party, but not this time. So that's the thing, right? It's about giving students the agency and not treating them essentially like information slaves.
Yeah.
We're just listen and regurgitate. Write it out on a test.
100%.
What do you learn from that, right?
Yeah. Do you ever? I sometimes get dark in thinking that, yes, of course, I see the same way. Sometimes I look at education and I'm like, this is indoctrination. What's going on here? We're not teaching our citizens to be free thinkers. Sometimes I get dark though and think, would the society be able to function if everyone was a free thinker though? For example, for me, there was a period where I was a little bit resentful at the education system because I'm starting to become a little bit more entrepreneurial. I like this idea of being able to one day work for myself. It's a dream of mine, right? So when I realized that education or that main traditional university isn't necessarily built to turn you into a citizen or a free thinker, this kind of thing, but is mainly there to, create employees. Because if you had an institution, all of your educational systems were structured in a way to make everyone an entrepreneur, nothing would work, right? Because entrepreneurs are the ones they don't necessarily want to work for each other, but you need people to work in teams. You need employees in the world. So I guess another example is that, okay, actually, no, let me finish this one about entrepreneurs. You have the institution. You have the mainstream of saying, go to school, do this, do that. The instructions, which inevitably lead you to where most people are, which is working for a corporation, slight increase in salary over the years if you stay at the same company, this kind of thing. I don't consider that necessarily too valuable because it's not scarce, because that's where most people lie in. And the most important thing about value is that it's scarce, is that not a lot of people have it. If you want something badly, it's because it's hard to get. You know what I mean? So I think that perhaps these institutions are necessary because we need people to work at McDonald's. We need people to work at the grocery store. All of this stuff is important. Another example I was talking about the other day with my girlfriend, we were talking about feminism and how mainstream feminism today is telling women to, focus more on their careers and that they don't only need to be mothers and that they shouldn't be a housewife and this kind of thing. Absolutely, I understand that. But I think that the issue now is that we're seeing is that the birth rate is declining, which is like red flag. We need humans. We need to be making people. Overpopulation is an argument you can make. I don't really think that that's overly valid, but let's put that to a side for now. We need people. So this new institution of encouraging women to not have kids is not good for the world. I think what would be better is that our mainstream incentive or what we're teaching our young women today is that being a mother is absolutely beautiful, and that there are going to be some outliers, some women who are like, I think I'm meant for more than being a mother. I want to start this amazing company, and they're going to divert naturally. Just like the entrepreneur is going to divert from mainstream education, the woman who wants to start an incredible business and help the world and maybe cure cancer is going to do that on her own. She's going to not listen to the mainstream. But if we're changing the mainstream to say all women shouldn't be mothers, then it's a huge issue.
Well, I think you have 2 points there. First point is how the education system shouldn't tune out all the same types of people, right? And then the second point is, for example, and use an example of feminism, stuff like that. So for me, I think you're absolutely right on the first part that they shouldn't tune out all entrepreneurs. They shouldn't tune out all doctors and lawyers and stuff like that, because diversity in a society is great in terms of your job, and because we need, in this economic system we need to specialize in trade. So we learn in Econ 101 or 105 that I took. Oh my god. But what we're seeing right now, I think, and it's a problem in my country as well, is that it used to be that the top people who are in their class who are passionate about actually studying something goes to university to do their further studies, and then they come out as more smarter about a certain subject because that's what they like to learn and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But now, at some point, it was hijacked into the system of churning out as many graduates as possible. Of course, money and everything. Yeah. Churning out people who may not want to be in university. One of my like pet peeve, I guess if that's the right way to put it, like something that I'm like, oh, what is when I meet a person at university or somewhere and they said, oh, I study this, and I'm like, oh, do you actually like what you're studying? And they're like, no. Whether it's like my parents made me do it or there's a lot of money involved with it. I'm like, oh, okay, because when you meet me, if you ever meet me, is the camera dead?
Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll go right back into it.
We were talking about how education system tunes out everyone to be similar. And I went into the fact that in like the olden days, universities were more for people who have genuine, or I would hope so. I wasn't there, sorry, 100 years ago. Yeah. Was more for people who are interested in what they want to learn, and what they want to discover. And now it's become like a mass-produced factory of graduates. I'm not even going to call them workers, because some people graduate and they can't find work.
Literally, yeah.
The skills or their skills have been severely diluted, right? So, in a sense, there is like this German model of education. If you've ever, I don't know why it's Germans in education all the time. Yeah. The new German model, not the Prussian one. About that. Yeah. Is that they have like tiers of schools. Like you either go into like the higher tier or the lower tier. And the lower tier is more, I think it's more like polytechnic stuff, like you learn to become a carpenter or something like that. The controversy there, again, is just how the hell does a kid at like 15, be able to decide the rest of their lives for themselves? Because I remember when I was 15, I played like football all day long, I don't care.
I was an idiot when I was 15. Yeah. I've hopefully improved a little bit.
We all hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So we enter that kind of complexity in how to create an education system. But but for sure, I don't think the education system of just telling people this is exactly what to do is practical. I think practical is a good word anymore because of information from the internet and from everywhere else we can access, right?
Absolutely.
So that's one of them. And on your feminism part, yes, I think I'll say this again, I think you're in a great Goldilocks zone there where you're in a realm of logic of saying, hey, you should create a society where, yes, while women can have the opportunity to get to the point of success, they shouldn't be discouraged from doing what their nature is to have children and for men as well to have children,
Yep.
to take care of children and stuff like that. I have to say I come from a matriarch family. My mom works really hard to be able to send me here.
Yep.
And yes, she has two lovely children. So I think it's not really the fact that you're, because you're successful in business, you can't have children and you won't, repopulate the country or whatever. But I think it's the fact that we're in such a, for a lack of a better term, this late stage capitalist society where it's so hard to get the necessary funds to run a family, to have children.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to raise me, and that's me alone, not including my sister who has a similar education as I do, because the education system back, say, in Thailand is so bad, they had to send me to an international school. And at that international school, oh great, I learned a lot of great stuff, but then I said I was still dissatisfied and I had to move to Canada. And that's also an expense in and of itself. Man, to fly from Canada to Thailand, it's like...
How long is that flight?
Oh, it depends, because sometimes I like to take a long trip in Japan.
Okay.
It's
okay.
amazing. I feel like I have this little Japan adventures every time
Nice.
I'm around there. So it can take up to a day.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I do miss. I haven't been back to Thailand for over a year now. So I love talking to tourists who went there recently, and I'm like, oh, what happened?
Did you stay here over the summer?
No, so I did an internship
Nice.
in Europe, in Brussels.
Nice.
That's a whole story in and of itself. But because of that, I always wanted to be in Europe for a whole year. I had the chance to do an exchange last year in Paris at Sciences Po. And I took that chance to work with the European Union in Brussels. And so I purposely said I don't want to go back to Thailand. And I'm not going back this winter because it's so damn expensive.
Yep.
So, I'm still in exile for now.
There you go. There's a book I've heard of. I haven't actually read it, called Barbarians to Bureaucrats. I don't know if you've heard of this book.
Not yet.
It walks through the life cycle of a corporation, but it also applies to a civilization. How, once again, haven't read it, this is just what I've heard. It starts out with a prophet. So it starts out with the guy with the idea who's coming in. I want to make a cellular device, which is also a mini computer. Steve Jobs, right? Prophet, ideas. The founding fathers, okay?
Is this a fictional book?
It's not a fictional book. It's basically just telling the story. It's kind of philosophical. Yeah. So the prophet comes in, founding fathers. We have an idea. This is what we're going to do. Awesome. The prophet then attracts barbarians, basically warriors. People are like, this guy's got a great idea. I'm ready to fight for it. Let's go. So I don't know who that would be in the case of Apple, but let's say a technical developer who's like, I think that what you have is awesome. We can...
Yeah, like an investor.
Sure. Yeah, that's perfect. Then after that comes builders and explorers, right? So you have your prophet, the guy with the idea, the barbarians who are ready to fight for it, die for it, this kind of thing. Then the builders who are like, okay, this is a thing. Now let's maybe try to upgrade. Let's expand. Let's do this. Let's do that. iPad, an Apple Vision Pro, this kind of thing. Awesome. Next comes administrators. So in the case of a civilization, law and order. You have the NHL in the 70s after the Philadelphia Flyers went and beat everybody up. They were called the Broad Street Bullies. Rule book went from this thin to this thick because we were like, okay, we need to control what's going on here because our sports league is looking like the UFC more than the NHL. Everyone's getting absolutely pummeled by the Philadelphia Flyers. So you got rules, you get law and order, basically. After administrators comes bureaucrats and aristocrats, basically people who are saying, we know what's best. This is where the stage is, I feel, with Western civilization. Like you were saying, I don't know if it can compare too much, but late stage capitalism. Right now you have bureaucrats, a lot of these people who are getting in the way of freedom and natural free market capitalism. The only way, according to this author, to prevent the collapse of this corporation or this civilization is for synergists to come and to remind everyone of how we got here. remind everyone that this was the profit, this was the energy that the barbarians came, this is why we wanted to do this thing in the first place. We wanted to create a free country like the USA, like Canada, because this is what was happening in Europe at the time. This is what was happening in Asia, Russia area at the time. So when you say late stage capitalism, what when you're thinking of that for people who maybe are worried of a collapse, because I've heard that recently of like, is the West going to collapse? Is China and Russia going to be the next big superpowers of the world? What's the world going to look like if we don't have the U.S. as the main superpower?
Ooh, see, that's a very interesting story first, because I will advertise one more course. It's Dr. Pavoni, Tommaso Pavoni. If you're watching, hello. It's called Law and Political Development, or Political Development and Law, and it talks about how the legalism, so like the art of law, comes to dominate states, and usually it's because laws and legalism was used by the Vatican City because they didn't have like the title of like a Holy Roman Emperor or something like that to fight these titles, these big titles. And it's a form of community like balancing of power of some sort. I have the law. The law, like Alexander Hamilton said, does not have the sword or to enact upon it. It only has the legitimacy that the state can enact upon it. And so people start to chewing out laws over and over again, because that's one way to restrict the state from growing, or like sometimes the people as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're talking about laws and how much space there is for them to restrict us, I think that true, it could be that we have entered an age where arbitrariness of these laws are becoming more apparent. Personally, I think it's like, so there's a political thinker, his name is Montesquieu, and he said that laws should be like more local. So it depends on where where you're from, what sort of conditions are in your society, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I feel that when I'm back in Thailand, law isn't that prevalent. I'd say prevalent or prominent. Yeah. Like if you've heard of cases like with the Red Bull, there's a son of Red Bull who hits a police lance corporal, and I think and he got away with it because say economy was so bad.
So wait, sorry, when you say law is not that prevalent?
Law seems to not have the outreach that they do here in the West.
You're saying federal law or local law, or so just law in general?
We're unitary government, so we have just state law.
Got it.
Yeah, it's like the UK. But what I'm trying to get at is that I think that I can't talk that deep into law. I don't want to be a lawyer, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the political institutions. So, but I think it's more of a area of like power balances between power. That's a very political science thing to say. Yeah. Is that if the people allow the state to enact so many laws, or the elites really, then you can go into a country that has all these arbitrary laws, because the state wants to suppress and wants to dominate, have a hegemony over the society.
Yeah.
Whereas if the society can rise up and maybe this is what you're doing, having a voice, for the people, and petition yourselves and make yourselves more clear that hey, we can't have too many laws, or these laws are terrible. Then it's great. But then again, it really conflicts with what I truly believe in, which is I don't like protests.
Yeah.
I've been to many protests and stuff like that, and I feel like it creates so much chaos and mob rule.
Participate or observing?
I participated in protests. We had many protests back, even now I think there still be protests, but I feel like this mob mentality isn't good for, to have, I don't want to say democratic values, just to have normal discourse between two different ideas. So
it makes people look stupid.
No, it's more like, you go in, sometimes you don't really know what the argument is, but you just go there because there's a lot, your friends go there. I was forced there, really. My parents were very political at that time. I said, I don't want to go. Look, if you want to change the country. And like, I have to say, I'm speaking from a privileged point of view, because now I'm thinking about it. I can do this because I have some political agency in my community. I think you have your political agency as well as a Canadian in the Canadian society. I don't think Chinese people can say that. I don't think Hong Kongers. I was speaking to a Hong Konger. He said, "Wow, why are you so visionary about your political plans and everything?" And I was like, "Oh, how can you not be?" And he said, "Yeah, well, I don't have political agency because I'm from Hong Kong, And so that's sad, but I'm just saying in general, from people that have political agency, you can do that, but I still don't think that you should do that, because that's my hot take, is I think that once you're in the mob rule, you take away your reasoning and the proper, peaceful, not transfer of power, but peaceful transfer of information between people. That's why we have a parliament to talk. Parliament, talk, and you have political debates, because it's better than just having mobs running at each other and fighting each other down, and like hitting each other, gunning each other down. That's actually what I was, got me into politics. If you want a bit of lore on me,
let's hear.
I remember I was 6 years old, perhaps 4 years old, even younger maybe. And I saw on the newspaper this this person. He was wearing, I don't remember whether it's red or yellow, but that was a very contested topic back in the days in Thailand. You have two groups of people. One wears yellow to support the king, and the others wear red to support this politician. And they think that the king had overthrown this politician, and they want to fight. But essentially, I was asking my parents, why the hell are us Thais, who are supposed to be this great united country, fighting each other because one person is wearing a different color, or a color the other person didn't like? Like, how the hell did that happen? And next thing I know, there was a military coup. I had soldiers on the streets, and I asked, wait, what the hell is going on? Why are there soldiers on the street? Are they protecting me? I don't know. I don't think my parents would give me I don't remember if they gave me an answer, but it was a jarring moment. I think they also we gave food to the soldiers who were standing just to help them out. But at that time, I always think soldiers are there to help us and whatnot. And what's more interesting was I was politicized by these events very young. I remember they were talking about this general. And they said, oh, the general has followed the Constitution. That's the way they say it when you committed a coup and you want to overthrow the Constitution. And I thought, oh, who is this poor Constitution fella who fell? It must be such a tragic event that everyone had to report on this. And so this kind of lingo in my youth really helped spark that love for understanding politics. But I have this idea where, okay, the reason I want to do politics is I want to unite my people. I want to make sure these events don't happen. And so when we're talking about politics and mob rule and protests and stuff like that, that's why I have that thought about, okay, we shouldn't be going into the society thinking that, oh, once I'm unhappy and I can gather 1,000 men, we can all march to the streets and close it down and disrupt the functions of people. Because I am aware that a lot of people, and a lot of people who are watching this maybe too, are not that into politics. They just want to live their lives. And I think that's exactly how I want to live my life too. If the political situation wasn't so bad back home, I'd love to just be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It would be a really different thing. I'll be here talking about, you've seen Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the explosion scene, even though my friends don't like it.
100%.
That would be great. I would love to go to film school, make movies about, how sad life can be, and then, go home. But then that's not what's happening, because it's this burning ache of like, hey, I want to do something for the people, for the community.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm here for in Canada, to learn with you guys. Yeah.
That's awesome. When you give that example of the red shirts and the yellow shirts, and it's, once again, both ties, both like this from the same country, supposed to be unified, supposed to be on the same team, and they're fighting each other. It makes me think of, let's say, this most current U.S. election, how you can have one person who supports Trump, one person who supports Kamala, but let's say this is red shirt and blue shirt. Blue shirt sees that his friend is wearing a red shirt. He doesn't even know why he's wearing a red shirt. For the blue shirt person, let's say he doesn't like Trump's policy on abortion, okay, and that's why he doesn't like Trump. But then the guy in the red shirt likes Trump because he's stronger on the border. You guys aren't even disagreeing on the same thing. It's just you place more importance on the border, you place more importance on abortion policy. You guys might actually have a lot of agreement. This person might be like, yeah, actually, I don't really like the state that the border's in. This person might be like, yeah, I could understand your view on abortion, blah, 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 blah. It's because not necessarily just straight back and forth disagreement. It's people have different weight and different importance on different issues.
That's a very keen observation. I totally agree with you, and that's why sometimes political discourse, for people who does not have the mind to compartmentalize the values and value judgment, is really difficult for me. Very annoying at times. It's I guess like I could use an analogy where it's like you're talking to an engineer, right? But you have no engineering background, and you're trying to say, I want to make this, beam 2 times larger. And I'm like, the engineer's probably going to go, well, you can't. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm like having to face when let's say I'm mediating a political discussion between 2 people who really don't have that much of a compartmentalized in their values. It's like, hey, look, that guy who's supporting the red candidate is having his parents just got laid off from the oil company. Yeah. So like, sorry, right. Like there's no way they're gonna say that because like the blue candidate supports greenifying the society is gonna be better, because that guy's not gonna care. Like his short-term benefit is now gone, and even though in the long run it might be better for the world, but like John Maynard Keynes says, in the long run we're all dead. So, yeah. I mean, that's why different people have different views, and I think it's more important to understand why he values that view a bit more. Yeah. But as someone with political agency, I'm saying, how can I get into government and make sure that I can convince everyone, I'm going to do this, but I want to convince everyone in totality why my idea is better than everyone else. I'm not going to censor it. Yeah. Like, I think censoring is dumb. What if you don't censor it, and then turns out there's a better idea because someone who criticized you gave you a better idea? Who thought of that? Exactly. Usually it's just like, I think it's a problem with the Cold War as well, a bit. With the, he's a communist, so like, shut up. Yeah, so I don't know if that's like something, but definitely in Thailand we have the issue of like the old military are like, oh no, we have to censor all these dissidents because they're communist. They're not. Like, okay, sure. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know if it applies to you.
I hear you. So let's circle in. There's no way to really transition to it, but we were just talking about the border as an example. Canadian border is also a hot topic today.
Right. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Trudeau's likely on his way out in 2025, but perhaps you can give me some ideas.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if this thing was on.
Was it on?
Damn. Do you want to check?
That's how my film productions often goes.
Yeah.
It's like shit just goes off the rails.
It happens.
Yeah. All the time.
We're back here with Paul. We just found out that
mic wasn't working. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
For about 50 minutes, but we're going to do our best to fix the camera audio And it was a good conversation.
Hey, I trust your editing skills. So like,
Thank
you.
you.
Like I've seen your work before, so I'm
Absolutely.
sure it's great, and
Well,
I can't wait.
We'll figure it out.
As an editor myself, I respect that.
You are interested in film, yeah?
Yes, I think film was my I like to say politics is my first love, and film is the fling that I really loved. No more.
Yeah.
But but I'm back. I'm back with you, baby.
There we go.
Politics. I'm back.
So we cut off. We were talking about immigration.
Yes, immigration. Immigration is such an interesting topic to me. I actually did not care so much about immigration until recently, simply because I thought, people can just come and go, and then like states are supposed to like block people that they don't want to come in, and like that's all. But immigration is more than that, and it goes to like my family. I say I'm Thai, and like all the Chinese people on Spadina speaks Mandarin to me. Oh well, that's because I'm technically like a fourth generation immigrant from southern China. I think it's like Shotao or something like that. So it's like very like in between Guangdong and Shanghai, and they came to Thailand looking for better business prospects and all that stuff, and I've been very well assimilated into the Thai community. I don't speak Mandarin. I barely celebrate. I don't like. My mom would do some Chinese New Year celebrations, but I hardly know what the traditions are anymore. And I say that's because in Thailand, immigration is very much assimilation. It's very much how can I fit into this community that I came to call home. Mm. And I think like there was a rule back in the 1930s that changed everyone from being Siamese or whatever to being Thai, and they try to cut away those hyphenated wording. You're not Thai Indian, you're not Chinese Thai, Thai Chinese, you are Thai. And that's what I really appreciate and I really love because, and I'll get back to Canada on this, but in Indonesia, in Malaysia, they're notorious for having segregated the Chinese population. In the Philippines, I think there's a lot of that as well. I have friends from these parts of the world, and they'll ask me, "Oh, you don't speak Hokkien? You don't speak Chinese Mandarin? All that stuff?" I'm like, "No, because I am Thai.
Yeah,
I don't associate with with being Chinese." And so that's what I think the immigration of people who want to become residents of a country should go through. And that's where I'm putting my benchmark for where my biases begin. Yeah. Now, in Canada, just making sure it's on. Now, in Canada, when I came here, it was the complete, I wouldn't say opposite, but it was a complete shock for me. I come in and I thought, oh, it's the melting pot where, everyone comes. Oh, no, that's America. That's the United States. In Canada, I feel like when you settle in, like the people that I'm with, I tried very hard to make friends and be like a regular member of a few, local, like white Canadians in my high school. I actually, my joke going in was like, hey, do you need to increase your diversity count? Because I'm here for you. Yeah. But then it just felt like, okay, well, I guess like they're not that welcoming, or like they don't want to hang out with me that much. And I think the reason was I'm just technically fresh off the plane, I guess, not the boat. Yeah. And I was not that assimilated into the society. I think it's different for Americans, and it's really interesting why. I think, and it's my belief, is that the American soft power, their movies, the way they portray their society, is so well understood around the world that it makes it easy for someone like me. I'll tell you this: my visa to enter Canada, to enter the United States, yes, we do need a visa. Weak passport countries. Yeah. Ran out in 2022, but I think I've become more Americanized in between that time and now. Really? Than when. Yeah, I started watching baseball a bit more seriously. Nice. And right, and shout out to the baseball team. I started, watching these American law movies and stuff, like Suits. I love Suits.
Yeah.
Even though it feels more like a Canadian law,
Yeah.
they film it here. But all this stuff, I started to learn like American law lingo and stuff like that, just to understand their society a bit more and stuff like that. So I've become more attuned to the American system without actually stepping in America.
Yeah.
But when I came to Canada, it's a bit different. And that's where, in the beginning, I talked about this teacher who kind of taught me, like, what is Vimirage?
Yeah.
What is the difference between, Western Canadians and Eastern Canadians, Quebec, Ontario and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Like now I'm learning, I'm absorbing it, I'm understanding this. And even when I was at home I had a host family, like thankfully. And I'm going to say all the things that I have here is very privileged. And I know not all immigrants can afford it, but I'm just trying to get to what the end goal is. But my host family, they would say, "Oh, could you pass me the salt instead of give me the salt," or something like that.
Yeah.
Phrase it as a question. I think that's a Canadian thing, like being is it passive aggressive, but not really, like being assertive in a passive way, I guess. To say sorry when you're walking past someone. These little Canadian gestures really makes that's my image of Canada. That's how I feel Canadians interact with each other when it's all Canadians or when it's in a Canadian community.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when I got to Toronto, it's
a little bit different.
It's a bit different.
Yeah.
It's a bit jarring. I feel like sometimes I don't feel like I'm in Canada at all. Sometimes I like to joke, but hey, it comes from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That, oh, I'm back in Asia again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like Canadians, for example, one of the key things that I love about the Canadian culture is your ability to small talk.
Right.
How can I small talk with people who don't even know English? What's going on? I'm sorry. I don't speak Mandarin. Again, we went over that. And maybe if I spoke Mandarin, I would get a bit more like fried rice for free at like Spadina, something like that. But it's like I'm sorry. Like I come here and the official language is French and English, but I go into a shop and I can't speak. They don't understand both languages, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll try my French, like je prends une, like congee soup or something like that, but they don't understand it. And then I get a bit like, that's weird. How did this happen? Where's the proper leeway into like coming here and work? And I understand if they're like international students and they're just here to study, just like me, fair.
Yeah.
But it's not. And there's a lot of I used to work at a pizza shop, and I'd like meet all these like courier workers, and they're really mean sometimes, and they're I'm sorry, like I mean there's a pattern of certain groups of people who are really mean, and I'm like that's not how I imagine working in Canada to be like. Canadians are nicer at least. They'll be more aware that like, look, like we're all humans here. You don't have to treat people like absolute crap when they right. And I feel like where was this, like where is this coming from, where, like, why are you like this? I
got a question for you.
Yeah, for sure.
About the immigration system here, because you said when you're in Canada, you're trying to learn the ways of this culture so that maybe you can extract some lessons and go back to Thailand and apply it there.
Yeah, for sure.
What mistakes with the immigration policy have you noticed that you're like, if I'm going to lead in some way in Thailand in the future, I'm going to make sure I don't do this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I'm about to get to, is that, and this is not my idea, a friend suggested this to me, is that in America, for example, they have quotas for certain groups of people that can come in. What that does is it forces you, more or less, to go into mingle with other immigrants, other ethnic groups.
Yeah.
As you can see here, it's not the case. And I took a class on Canadian immigration and whatnot, and I think it's a legacy of like the Second World War when you didn't accept Jewish refugees and they all went and died in Europe. And so the next thing was the next big immigration event, I suppose, was the Vietnam War.
Right.
With the Vietnam War, you have an influx of Vietnamese people who come here and they settle and they work hard and they keep. I think for the most part they keep their heads low. They keep their their work to just economic and all this stuff. I don't think there was a lot of like Vietnamese movement for like to. I'm gonna get to where I'm getting to is this. If we take, for example, Indian immigrants here, and the import of Indian issues like the Khalistan movement, and like there was
What is
an
that?
assassination.
What is that movement?
Yeah, so
I do know the assassination you're talking about.
yeah, the assassination of the Khalistan movement leader. Khalistan is I think it's an area in the Punjab region that is this concept of a state for Sikh people of the Sikh religion, Sikhism.
Yeah.
Because there are, see, I'm not an expert on this, but this is what I know, is that they're kind of oppressed by the Hindu majority government of Modi. And so they want this freedom, this their own state. Now, to what extent is that state practical, and how will they survive? I'm not sure, but there is that movement, and it's becoming violent. And you can see like videos of like clashes between Khalistan supporters and the Indian state supporter, I suppose, in Canada. And that's jarring. I'm like, why are you importing this issue? I understand that, like, yeah, it's your homeland and stuff, but you're in Canada. Have some respect for the land, I suppose.
Right.
Damn, maybe I shouldn't be speaking this. I'll get assassinated next. But it's stuff like that is jarring to me, and I think that it's just like sometimes I use the word unbearable. It's unbearable because I come here. I remember in my high school days, and it was nice. It was beautiful. It was there's a harmony within the society. There's the culture of the unwritten rules.
Yeah.
And because they don't have the context to these unwritten rules of this harmony and stuff like that, it feels like the country's being hijacked, doesn't it?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of Canadians would agree with that and would be, I guess they would relate to kind of the emotion you're expressing. It's incredible that it takes an international student to kind of express it the way you do.
Well, I want to say it's not just the white Canadians per se. It's not just the people here. My friend, my Thai Indian friend, was like, he just want to give you the context here. He's Thai, but I stayed with his family who immigrated to Canada after the partitioning or something like that. There's a long story there, but they said, like, they don't actually like the new immigrants.
100%.
And I'm like, well, damn, like, that's new. But that was like, I think it was 2019. And now that I've studied more politics, it turns out that's the case for many immigrants, is when they got in and then they kind of have to go through the assimilation process, and they completed in their assimilation.
Yep.
And then you have whatever the new like regime of immigration just began and started to have an influx of immigrants.
Yep.
is crazy. But I look at this. You asked me earlier, what you see in Canada and what you want to bring back to my country, and like if I have the political agency to run as a head of the government. I see this. My plans for Southeast Asia, I hope, is to have a federative union of some sort. I copy this, great artists steal, so I copy this of the EU. And one part of the EU that I love so much is the freedom of movement, okay? The freedom of movement, I think, is a great way to readjust the people's sentiment towards, their government. So if you don't like your government, you move somewhere. You don't like Texas, let's use America. You don't like Texas, you move to California, vice versa. I think it's a great way for them. It's a great way for them to express their own, their own personal values that matches with where they live in.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of countries as clubs. If you don't like this club, go to another club, right?
Yep.
Now, the thing is, in the EU, why does it work? I've spoken to some professors on this, especially I think his name is Joseph Cairns. And he said why the EU, why it works in the EU is because people have similar economic, statuses. Like, for example, if you're Italian, you want to go work in Germany. Say the jobs in Germany is done, and like there's an economic downturn. Just go back to Italy. It's fine. It's not that bad. Like, I mean, who doesn't want to live in Italy? I do for sure.
Yeah.
But then, you here in Canada with the influx of immigrants from third world countries, I don't like to use that term as well, but from like developing countries, you have this sense of they're here and they're trying to set up their lives here, and it's hard for them to go back home. I think the difference when comparing to my own context of immigration in Thailand is that most of the Burmese or Cambodian immigrants that come to Thailand has families back in Cambodia that cannot come into Thailand or in Myanmar. I think Myanmar is a better example for me because I have personal experiences with Burmese immigrants. And they would go home. They would go send their money back home, go home, build a house back there, and then eventually when they have enough, they would go back. Right? Do you think the policy of like being able to bring families and your wives and everyone here to Canada will bring immigrants home? I don't think so. But then the problem was that because all these immigrants come without a quota, they all create their own little communities here. Yeah. Now, this has always been the age-old problem. Happened with the Chinese immigrants. Happened with a lot of stuff. But I think
the Chinese immigrants where
to Canada.
To Canada. Okay.
Even I think everywhere you see a Chinatown. Why is there a Chinatown? Because they all live in the same area. But I think what is missing is in the West there's this sense of we shouldn't assimilate them to the country. It's bad.
Yeah,
it's
why? I don't understand.
I'm from a pro assimilation country.
No, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can only like guess why, but I think it's because perhaps there's a lack of culture or a lack of value for the culture of the land.
Interesting.
You ask what's Canadian culture, what do you say?
What do I say?
Yeah, what do you say as a Canadian?
Hockey.
Yeah, hockey.
Respect.
Maybe poutine and
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about it. But I think. Yeah. No, but I think that when it's not hockey, when it's not that, it's about like the smaller things, like you said, like respect, like could you pass me the salt? Could you stuff
courtesy?
Like courtesy, yeah. And maybe of course it's maybe bilingualism as well, being able to speak English and French.
Yeah, it would be maybe bilingual, but the thing is that the tension between the English and the French historically has been so deep that I don't know if that's a trait that Canadians themselves champion. Maybe it's like everyone else looking in and being like, there's people that speak English and French, but it's like the English and French here, I don't know as much now, but definitely over time have hated each other. So
yeah, I can see where that's coming from. Yeah, for sure. So it's stuff like that I think you should be able to be proud about and stuff. But I think that there's also this this sentiment. A lot of critics would be like, "Oh, that's not true." But do you know the sense of this left nationalism in Canada? Mm-hmm. This sense that because we can't define ourselves, at least the English-speaking Canadians, from the Americans. The only thing we will define ourselves is that we're just not American, and one thing Americans are conservative. Right? Yeah. Like you can see with the election results, they want to like give California and all this thing to like Canada. Oh, this is how we partition the country. Because they're so proud of being the left. Yeah. But the left, as much as conservatism for me, is not an ideology. Conservatism is just the state of what it is, the state of what the current society is. The left is fragmented because in order to change, you need to have a point. But the change in society is so complex that you can't pinpoint where exactly you want to end that left nationalism, that left movement. And there's a lot of talks about like leftist infighting and stuff like that. Yeah. Now I think you could say that Canada wanting to differentiate from the conservatism of America has gone so far as to forgot what real, the wisdom of the land is and what is practical.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of what's happening with the immigration system. And you have to see, they're actually like realizing this problem, and they're, falling back and like doing stuff that doesn't match with the trend that they've been going on.
Now, you give them credit for that. For me, I see that and I'm like, you guys created a problem just so you could fix it right when the election's coming up.
Oh,
Do you think that could be the case?
I'm saying that could definitely be the case because you don't fall that far behind in the polls.
Right.
And not do anything like, but it's that, look, if we the Canadians, can you believe it? If Canada had a different administration or a different view on immigration, maybe it would be, a better place, and maybe it would be a place that is more desirable. Because when I came here as a young student trying to study in Canada, I did not come here wanting a PR, but I left it the first time when I left my school. I was like, hey, not bad. Let me see what's more, and let's see if living here is something I could think about. Yeah. But having been here in Toronto for the past 3 years, I remember the first 2 years I said, this is so much, like too much. I can't take it. I have to go to Paris for 1 year. Yeah. Otherwise, I would hate it. And we can see that like the way this immigration process was done was not thought of carefully, or when it was thought of it was made to benefit a certain class.
Yep.
Perhaps the rich, perhaps stuff like that.
Yeah,
and,
I hear you.
And I think it's a job or it's the duty of the people to not be so blind, or to be able to have the foresight and to come out and say, wait a minute, this is not right.
This is where you get the issue, because I think that especially the populations of the West have been neutered to a point where they can clearly see an issue. You guys are inviting way too many people in from all the same place, way too fast. And you gave the example of the fighting. There's Indian political issues being fought over.
There's also Canada. Chinese political issues. This one I was thinking about in Vancouver. There is a fight between pro Hong Kong Hong Kong protesters and the Chinese, mainland Chinese people, and I'm like, what the hell? What if I'm there? I'm just minding my own business. I want to do good old Canadian stuff. Maybe have some poutine and then get like mixed up because I look the part. I guess. What happens then? Yeah. So I'm not trying to be conservative. I'm trying to be reasonable here. I'm trying to be. 100%. How the hell do you have issues from abroad being projected here? So you can already, tell what my thoughts on the Palestine protests is, but being projected here in Canada, where you know what? Actually, that's a different piece in and of itself with investments and stuff like that. But you have like issues of other countries like doing stuff like in Thailand we had the Black Lives Matter movement. I remember it's like a solidarity movement. But in my mind, I'm like, why is the street closed? Because they're trying to advocate for.
That's me. You can keep going.
Advocate for black people's lives when we don't have a history of black slavery in Thailand. I'm like, what's going on? And I think
is there a large black population in Thailand?
There are, but not large, man. They're very minor people. So. A minority of people. So I'm also like not appreciative of you come to this country, you bringing your own like political issues with you. You're supposed to, when you go to someone's house, you don't bring your broken tub to to their place. So like, why the hell are you bringing these?
100%. Yeah. I want to ask you another question about it. I'm gonna fix this battery and we'll get back to it. I was going to ask you, you were saying it's up to the people to kind of step back against this, and I was basically just talking about how...
And I know I did say that I don't like protests, so when I say this is because you go out and vote, but
makes sense. Yeah. I was saying how the local population, native population of Canada has been neutered to a point where if you say anything against it, if we had a white... blonde Canadian come on here and talk like you're talking, people might rip into him and being like, you're racist, you're whatever, they lump them all in together. But this fear of being accused of being racist. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be, hated on by even friends. You could have people who are like, no, we're not into that. You're discriminating, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's discrimination. I think it's you're just using your eyes and brain. Using your eyes and brain is racist now.
I have a more fundamental look into that point. I believe that there's a part of human nature, right, that is us versus them, and what people who are trying to break this part of nature is saying is, oh, we can unteach this, us and them kind of thought.
Do you think that's possible? I don't think that's possible.
See, yeah, I think it's very difficult because you have two different sides to the problem. First side is teaching the person to unlearn those, us versus them mentality. The other side is to make sure that the group that are creating this problem or creating this issue for someone over and over again isn't doing it, there's not because I'm Chinese, I drive the car bad and then I crash into people, and then if I'm Chinese and then I do that over and over again. I'm not Chinese, I'm Thai, by the way.
Yeah.
And then people who are trying to be taught not to look into those kind of.
Okay. Well, maybe it needed a bit more time. So, where were we? Cut you off.
Good question.
Talking about baseball.
Yeah, we were talking about baseball.
Belgium.
Belgium. No, that was off camera.
Was that off camera?
What did I say off camera? Oh, right. So basically, what Canada wants, or what Canada had was this cultural hegemony of white people.
Right.
It's not that it's good. I'm sure your food, the best food that you got throughout that time was poutine. It's not good.
You don't like poutine?
Huh? No, I'm saying it's great, but how is that your national dish? How is that the best thing that you guys made? Because you have the cultural hegemony. It creates this sense of internal and understanding of each other. As much as you guys fight internally, it can drive the country forward a bit more. You take Japan, another good country of we have this cultural national understanding of a hegemonic culture.
So sorry, let me ask you.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Countries, for them to work properly, they need to have something in common. Everyone needs to share something to know that we are the same. We are different than people in this country. That's why you're proud to be Canadian, because everyone in this country is at least common in this way, whatever way that is. So I'm wondering, do you think the only way that that's possible is through a race and ethnicity?
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I will get to why. So I'm a nationalist in a sense, in that I believe that the power of the unity within a state is very important. Now, I don't think I can be an ethno-nationalist because I would be the first person in Thailand to be purged, to be exterminated. So what I am is I'm a civic nationalist. So in a sense that, hey, if you identify as having this value of I say I'm Thai, so I'm Canadian, then let's come together. Let's go through the right institutions and create a better society. Now, the problem is, if you have people who are residing within the country making all these noises without actually identifying with the local traditions and the local customs of the land, then it's kind of having an ununified society.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to point at is the more unified your society is, the better they can move forward as a country. Yep. Now, this sounds like it contradicts what we were talking earlier about education, about having that individual thought or having a different thought from the group. I don't think so, because I think there's a line where if you have different views on things on life, on, oh, you like the color red more than the color white or something like that, you know, very Canadian, you know, what are you going to dress for Christmas? That's fine. That's great. That should not be censored, or that can be up to you. There's also things like that cannot be compromised, like, oh, how do you want to take the country forward? Do we increase taxes on everyone and stuff like that? And that is where you put it out to the political machine, whether it's by voting, whether it's by making it up the ranks of politics to vouch for your own you know, interest. And of course that is being hijacked right now by, you know, the ultra elites with the money, but that's another issue, and I say people should go out and try to find a fix for this system as well. But in an essence, because you have this united community where conflicts are solved through nonviolent means, through discourse and conversations and understanding of each other, and a genuine love and care for each other in the community. I think that's how you get a great nation. That's how you had, you know, the great, you know, industrialization of the world. Not that it's been so good for many things like the environment, but that's how we got a better, like, I can say without a doubt, we're living in a better economic time than 200 years ago before nationalism.
Of course.
Maybe 3. So that's what I'm saying is like, hey, we should be able to say, I love this community so much, I want to do better for this community, and then do it through, you know, the voting system, and do it through discourse. That is different from if the politicians in charge are good. That's I think is a symptom of bad education system, or a lack of political interests within the country. And I do feel when I first came to Canada, at least maybe because I was in BC, that the interest in politics here is so much lower than back in, say, where I'm from in Thailand. But then again, I just went from capital city to an outpost. Sorry, Victoria is an outpost. It feels like it's just out there. It's a capital of BC, but holy hell, I tell you, man. I say Victoria. I'm sorry. We could have a whole podcast on Victoria. Actually, it's like a special segment, but it's called the city for the newlywed and nearly dead, and I am neither of those. I always say to people like, oh, you go to Canada, you think you're gonna get this great, you know, this great wilderness, or you're gonna go to like a city like Toronto where there's like sports and movie festivals and everything. Victoria is not like, it's just in between. It has a movie festival, it has some parks, but it's not there. You know.
I hear you.
So I do look back at it fondly of how the hell did I survive Victoria for so long. But you know, that's one part. But
what do you think is the ultimate solution then to this crisis? A lot of Native Canadians are like, I've seen videos where it's like just people being comfortable being like, I'm racist now, I guess, like whatever, this is what's happened to me. And it's like, okay, well, that's obviously not ideal for a citizen and for government. How do you fix it? Is it fixable?
So let's talk a bit about identity politics, because you mentioned, oh, I'm racist now. What does that really mean?
Right.
Now let's go back to like to 2010s. That's kind of when I started to understand what the hell, just identity politics. I just thought it's maybe a struggle between states, struggle between class. You know, well, I mean, I guess that is identity politics, but the identity politics of like race and stuff like that is like started to come out, or gender issues and stuff like that. When I was in middle school, when this started to come up, I was more interested in how can I create a better country of Thailand. What institutions are involved? What sort of values do we Thais have that can be put forward to make it better? Then I get issues like, oh, sorry, that's like the wrong gender pronoun and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, like, why is this such an important issue that I have to follow? Can I not be like speaking the same English that they spoke maybe 10 years ago? Hey, mind you, I was learning English at that time too. So it's a bit of a inconvenience, I would say, for me to, hey, wait, like that's the English I've been learning and I'm trying to learn more, and then I have to change the vocabulary just like that without actually people explaining to me. The thing is, that is an example of bad implementation of change that they want to see happen. Because instead of explaining to me why it should be like that, they just have no answer for that. They just go, because it's important to me. Oh yeah, you. I think this this conversation has been echoed 1,000 times, but it goes to show why that's a problem. Like instead of explaining like, oh, because unlike you, your identity doesn't really come up as an issue in society, but my identity does, and that I can empathize with. But the way they're teaching it is just it's just like what's happening in Thai education system is, hey, you listen and follow.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, so that's one. And if you come to Canada and then you see that I feel like people are being forced to accept this change in society that they're not willing to accept because their lives, I mean, for better or for worse, was what they're content with.
Yep.
And the new life that they're about to approach is not it's not that good.
So as someone who doesn't necessarily believe in protest, what do you believe is the mechanism to resist that?
Oh yeah, good. So I think because I don't like the truckers, man. Like I'll go into the truckers thing. It's like, hey, I'm here at me, Paul, an Asian boy, is at the University of Toronto trying to study his ass off. And then there are all these truckers that are like blocking Queen's Park or whatever. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit scared, walking through like, hey, I also, I'm not like, I'm also, I want to say I'm also Canadian, but in the sense of like, I also value the same things you guys value sometimes, but the appearance is not like that. I understand and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm scared, but I don't go and counter protest them. I don't agree with them. So I hope that like, it's just that I'm not in a political authority, but if I were to be Canadian, I might go into a parliament and say, hey, as someone, I want to vouch for this, and then I hope you listen. And if they don't listen, okay, fine. I'll be able to like stay with it for a while. I think it could be like, I'm trying to think like what I can do, like say a problem that's happening in Thailand or something like that. But I think that if you cannot protest and you do have the political agency to go out and make a change, like you should petition, make your voice heard, have discourse with them, talk to the truckers maybe. I have talked to like anti-abortion people. That's I don't agree with them. I think abortions are fine by me. I think that like it's better for the economy at times, and I try to make those arguments with the anti-abortion people. Now the problem between us is we have two different values, right? And so I think it's the job of like people, whether it's academics, whether it's political leaders, to install a value that you want in your society, and that way you can take it to a non-violent, agreement, whether that is a vote or I don't like to use the word coexistent because I want to win every argument that I'm in or know that I am wrong. Right? So I want to make sure that in this society you can know that you're in the wrong and you're in the right when it's a proper time. But that requires, better education system and whatnot. So
100%.
I leave it there, I guess. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic conversation up until this point. Obviously, the start was very good. Hopefully, the audience was able to take that in as well as you guys did. But do you have any final thoughts, anything last that you want to share before we sign off?
Well, I want to say that, like, I'm sure these words, right, that I've said today will be recorded and remembered for a long time. The thing is, I like to say that there's two sides to politics, and some of you in the STEM would not agree with me, is that while politics is art, it's also a science. And the art of politics for me is to be able to convince people, to be able to make the political strategies and to move the political system in a certain way that is expressive of you. That's why I call it an art. But the science is also, there are evidence out there that I can use to prove a point. I mean, that's why we write essays in politics. We want to prove a certain thesis, a certain point, right? And I'd like to say I'm a scientist here because I used to believe, in all sorts of different ideologies. I could say I believed in all the ideologies. I was a communist when I was 12. I was a libertarian earlier, and I was at some point I was going on YouTube videos saying, "Hey, you're racist for making that," because that's what I thought that it was the right thing to do. But as a scientist, I see the evidence around me, and it could be biased. I think all sciences are biased, and say, okay, I see the evidence around me. I am convinced by the evidence or the argument that you guys are making backed by evidence, and my ideas can change. So I think that's what everyone should be able to do in a civil society, is to be able to see, look, I have evidence for why I think this is great, and I can disprove your evidence, or you have disproven my evidence. Oh, now I believe you, and that's how we have a more harmonic society where political discourse is done in a way that doesn't attack your personal, you as a person, but attacks perhaps the idea that you're presenting. And it's okay to know that your ideas are right or wrong, and to know that others have different values in life as well. That's not just yours. And I think that's how I love to have a perfect society of political thinkers who are critical in their life, in other people's lives as well. That's the community I want to see.
That's awesome. Paul,
thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much to the live audience at the back here. Appreciate you guys coming.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for listening. That is Paul Phanachet. You can follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vic. Anything you want to plug?
No, just go out there and have a good discussion.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will see you next Sunday. Peace out.
Thank you.